The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame. Chapter 1. The Riverbank. The Moor had been working hard all morning. It was spring and he was cleaning his house after the winter. He lived under the ground, but he knew spring had come. Suddenly he wanted to stop. He had done enough cleaning for one day, so he climbed up his tunnel, up to the ground. Moor breathed the fresh spring air. How good it smelled. Then he jumped out of his hole and started walking. Where was he going? He didn't know. He just liked being outside. Everywhere animals were spring cleaning. He enjoyed watching them work. He was happy that he had finished cleaning. He walked for a long time. Then suddenly he saw something new. He had never seen anything like it. It was a river. It looked beautiful in the sunshine. Moor stood and watched it for a long time. Then he sat down on the bank. He noticed a dark hole in the bank on the other side of the river. Then he noticed two brown eyes inside the holes. The eyes moved and a head came out. It was the water rat. "Hello, Moor," said the water rat. "Hello, Rat," said Moor. "Would you like to come over here?" Rat asked next. "Yes, but can I?" said Moor. He didn't know about the river and he had never seen a boat. "Of course you can," laughed Rat. "Wait a minute, I'll come for you in my boat." And he got into a little blue and white boat which was outside his hole. Moor was afraid when he first got into the boat, but he was also very excited. "So this is a real boat and I'm in it," he thought to himself. "This is a wonderful day," he told Rat. "I've never been in a boat in my life." "Never?" cried Rat. "You've never?" He was so surprised that he couldn't speak. "Is boating really so nice?" asked Moor. Nice? It's the nicest thing in the world." And the rat started to row across the river. "Look, Moor, have you got anything to do in this morning? Because if you haven't, why don't we go out in the boat? We can take some food and go out on the river for the whole day." Moor laughed happily. "Oh, Ratty, let's start at once. This is the best day of my life." "Just a minute, then I'll go get some food," said, and Rat climbed into his hole. 2 minutes later, he was back. He was carrying a very large basket. "Here, Moor, put this under your feet." Rat took the oars and started to row. Moor sat back and looked at everything. It was all so beautiful. The sun on the water, the green of the bank, and the gentle noise of the water on the bottom of the boat. Moor and Rat didn't speak for a long time. Then at last Moor said quietly, "So this is a river." "The river," Rat said. "And you live by the river, Rat. What a great life," Moor went on. "By it, with it, on it, and in it," said Rat. "The river is my brother and sister, my mother and father, my friends, food and drink, and, of course, washing. It's my world." "But haven't you got any friends? If there's only you in the river, who do you talk to?" Moor wanted to know. "Who do I talk to?" Rat laughed. "My dear Moor, there are a lot of people on the river bank. There are ducks, otters, toads, badgers, 100 animals and birds. I've got a lot of friends." "What's that over there, Ratty?" asked Moor, and he pointed to a lot of dark trees about a mile away. "Oh, that," said Rat. That's the wild wood. We don't go there often. We like the riverbank better." "Why?" asked Moor. "Aren't the people in the wild woods very nice?" "Well," said Rat slowly, "some of them are all right. Badger lives there, and he's a good friend of mine. But some of the other animals, the stoats and weasels, well, I don't know them very well, but—" And he stopped. Moor didn't ask any more questions about the wild woods. He knew that it wasn't a very nice place. "And what's on the other side of the wild wood?" Moor asked. The wide road. The wide world, answered Rat. I've never been there, and I'm never going there. And you mustn't go there. Now, he added, here's the place for our lunch. He rowed the boat down a stream away from the big river. Everything there was quiet. Rat helped Moore out of the boat on the bank. Then he got out the food basket. Let's eat, Moore. Are you hungry? Moore was very hungry. He had had nothing to eat since breakfast many hours before. They had a wonderful lunch, and then they sat on the bank in the sunshine. What are you looking at? Rat asked. I'm not sure, Moore answered. I think there's something in the water, but I can't really see. Suddenly there was no nose above the water. It was the otter. Why, didn't you ask me to lunch, Ratty? He cried when he saw the food basket. Where? Said Rat. Oh, Otter, this is my friend, Mr. Moore. How do you do, Moore? Asked Otter. How do you do, Otter? Said Moore. What a day this is, Otter went on. The whole world's out. Spring really has come, hasn't it? There was noise behind them, and they saw another animal. Badger, what a surprise, said Rat. Badger walked 2 steps forward, but then he saw Otter and Moore. Oh, a lot of people, he said quietly to himself. He turned around and walked away. Oh, Badger, said Rat. He always does that. He doesn't like a lot of people. You shan't see him again today. We shan't see him again today. Who's that on the river, Otter? Tell us. Toad's out. He's got a new rowing boat. New boating clothes, everything new. Otter looked at Rat, and they both laughed. Once it was sailing, said Rat. Then it was a houseboat, and now it's rowing. Poor Toad. He never does anything for long. I wonder what will be next. He's such a nice person. Such a nice person, said Otter, but he really isn't safe in a rowing boat. Well, I must be going now. I really think we should go home too, Moore, said Rat. Please let me row, Ratty, Moore said as they got in the boat. No, Moore, not today. It isn't as easy as it looks. You must have some lessons first. So Moore sat down, but after half an hour, He tried again. This time he didn't say anything, just got up, pushed Rat out of the way, and took the oars. Stop it! Don't be silly, shouted Rat. You can't row. You'll pull us both in the river. But it was too late. Moore tried to row, and the next moment splashed. Boat turned over, and they were both into the water. Harp! Thought Moore as he went down and down. How cold it is. I think I'm going to die. But suddenly he felt a hand. It pushed him to the bank. Rat had saved him. Poor Moore. He was so wet and cold and unhappy. Come on, Moore, said Rat. Run up and down the bank. It will make you dry again. I'm going to get the boat. Very soon everything was back in the boat, and Rat rowed home. Ratty, said Moore quietly, I'm really very sorry. I was very silly. I hope you'll forgive me. I won't do it again. Of course I'll forgive you, Moore, Rat answered. What's a little water to a water rat? But Moore, I think you should come and stay with me by the river. Then I can teach you to row and to swim. Oh, Ratty, thank you, said Moore. That would be lovely. And he laughed for the first time since he had fallen into the water. And so Moore went to stay at Rat's house. They had made many happy days by the river, and the river and in the river, on the river and in the river. Moore learned to swim and row, and he learned to love the river. Chapter 2. Moore Meets Toad. One warm summer morning, Rat and Moore was sitting on the riverbank. Ratty, said Moore, can we go and visit Toad? I've heard a lot about him, and I'd like to meet him very much. Certainly, Moore, answered Rat. Get the boat out, and we'll go at once. Toad likes visitors. He'll be glad to see us. "Is Toad nice?" said Moore as they got in the boat. "Yes, he is very nice. Not very clever, perhaps, but sometimes he talks too much. But he's a good toad." Soon they saw Toad Hall from the river. It was a big old house with a beautiful garden by the river. They left their little boat among Toad's boats. None of his boats were being used. "I see," said Rat. "Boating is finished. I wonder what the latest thing is. Let's go and see." They found Toad in the garden. He jumped up when he saw them. "Ratty, how lovely to see you! I wanted to see you, and here you are," he cried. "Toad, this is my friend Moore," said Rat. "Let's sit quietly for a moment, Toad," Rat went on. "Isn't this a beautiful place, Moore?" Before Moore could answer, Toad cried, "Yes, it is the finest house on the river, or anywhere." Moore and Rat looked at each other and laughed. Toad noticed this, and his face went red. "All right, Ratty, I know that I boast about my house, but it isn't a bad house, is it? Now I need your help." "If it's about your rowing," Rat said, "you're doing quite well, but you need some more lessons, I think." "Oh, pooh, boating," Toad said. "Boating is for boys. It's a waste of time. No, I've found something better. Something for the rest of my life. Come with me and I'll show you." He led Rat and Moore into the back of the house. "There," he said, "that's my new life." He pointed to a red and yellow caravan. "I'm going to travel everywhere in that caravan. I'll go to a new place every day. Come inside and see. There's everything we need." Rat didn't want to go inside the caravan, but Moore was very excited. Toad showed him everything: the cooker, the leather beds, the books, the games, the food. "I've remembered everything," he said at last. "When we start this afternoon, you'll see." "Toad," said Rat slowly, "did you say we and start this afternoon? Because I'm not going to leave my river and my house and my boat. I'm not going traveling. And you don't want to travel, do you, Moore?" No, I don't," said Moore quietly, but the truth was that he really wanted to go. He had fallen in love with the little red and yellow caravan. Rat could see that Moore wanted to go in the caravan. He didn't want to hurt his friends, so he said, "Shall we think about it for a time?" "Yes," said Toad. "Let's think about during lunch. You will stay for lunch, won't you?" During lunch, Toad tried to change Rat's mind. He talked about his plans, and Moore was more and more excited. At last, Rat said that they would go, but only a short journey toward Toad, just a day or two. So the three friends left Toad Hall that afternoon. It was a lovely afternoon, warm sunshine, but not too hot. They traveled many miles and they saw a lot of new things. Late in the evening, they stopped in a field. They had a simple meal while Toad talked about his plans for the next day. "What a good life," he said happily. "This is better than your river, Rat." "No, it isn't," said Rat sadly. "Oh, poor Rat," said Moore very quietly, because he did not want Toad to hear. "Do you want to go home? We can leave very early in the morning if you like." No," answered the Rat. "Thank you, but we must stay with Toad. It isn't safe to leave him. Don't worry, caravanning won't last long." New things never last long with Toad, but the end was nearer than Rat knew. The next morning, Rat and Moore got up early, but they couldn't wake Toad, and so they washed the cups and plates. They cooked the breakfast and gave the horse some food. There was a lot of work, but Toad still slept. He didn't wake up until they had finished. They had another good day outside, but on the second evening, Moore and Rat made Toad help them. He didn't like helping very much. The next day, they were walking along a quiet road. Moore was leading the horse while Rat and Toad walked beside the caravan. Toad was talking a lot. Suddenly, in front of them were a cloud of dust. It was coming towards them very fast. There was a lot of noise, too. Poop, poop. Next minute, the cloud and the noise were on top of the animals. They couldn't see in the dust, and they couldn't think because of the noise. They tried to jump out of the way, but they couldn't. In a minute, the thing had passed them. Slowly, the dust went away, and the three animals could see each other again. The poor old horse was very frightened, and Moore had a great difficulty holding him. The caravan was on its side in the road. The window and two of the wheels were broken. What a sad sight it made. Rat was very angry. He jumped up and down in the middle of the road. He shouted at all the bad words he knew. Surprisingly, Toad did not seem to be angry, but he was behaving in a very unusual way. He was sitting in the middle of the road, and he looked very happy. He said again and again, "Poop, poop, poop, poop." "What is the matter with you, Toad?" he said. "Help us with the caravan. Let's see if we can move it." But Toad still didn't move. "What a wonderful sight," he said quietly. "The only way to travel. So that is a motor car. "What shall we do, Rat?" asked Moore. "The caravan is very badly broken. Toad must go to the police. He must tell them about the car." "No," said Rat. "He won't go to the police. He has finished with caravans. Cars are the latest things I know. We must take him back to the next town. Then we can catch a train home." And so Moore and Rat looked at Toad, took Toad back to Toad Hall. Then they went back to Rat's house by the river. It was very late when they got there, and they were very tired. The next day, they heard that Toad had gone up to London. He had bought a big new motor car. Chapter 4. The Wild Woods. Moore had wanted to meet Badger for a long time. One day, he said to Red, "Why don't we ask Badger to dinner so that I can meet him?" "No, I don't think so," Red answered. "You see, Badger doesn't like dinner parties and things." "Well, can't we go to visit him?" said Moore. "No, Moore, we can't. We must wait until Badger comes to see us. He will come in the end, you'll see." And Rat would not say any more. The summer passed quickly. Rat and Moore were very busy on the river every day. Then winter came, and Badger had not come to see Winter. Rat and Moore were very busy on the river every day. Then winter came, and Star Badger had not come to see them. Rat and Moore began to be lazy. They slept a lot, getting up late and going to bed early. Rat did very little during those short days. Sometimes he wrote little stories, but mostly he just sat by the fire. Often he and Moore talked about the past summer, and they remembered the good times that they had had. Moore did not sleep as much as Rat, and one afternoon in the middle of the winter, he went out for a walk. "I think I'll go to visit Mr. Badger," he thought to himself. "It isn't really very far, and Rat doesn't need me." The country was very different in winter. Everything looked dead. There were no leaves on the trees, and the grass was brown. It was very cold. Moore walked quickly in order to keep warm. He arrived at the wild woods and walked straight in. At first, he didn't see anything frightening, but as he went deeper into the woods, there was less light. As it got darker, poor Moore began to see strange faces in the blackness around him. Then he heard strange noises. He walked faster and faster. Day had become night. He was very frightened. There were more strange noises, and woods grew still darker. Moore didn't know which way to go. At last he stopped and found a hole under a big tree. I can't walk anymore. I'm too tired and cold here. I think I'll be safe. By the time Rat had woken up by his fire at home, tea time, he thought to himself. Moore, shall we have some tea? He shouted, but there was no answer. Rat looked for Moore all over the house, but he couldn't find him. Then he saw that Moore's coat and winter shoes were not in their usual place. He's gone out, Rat thought. I wonder where he's gone. Winter isn't a good time for walking. Suddenly Rat stopped. Oh no, I hope he doesn't go to the wild woods. Rat quickly opened his front door, and he could see the marks of Moore's winter shoes on the ground. They were going towards the wild wood. I must go to find him at once. He doesn't know the wild woods, and he'll be very frightened, Rat cried. It was already dark when Rat left home. He walked very quickly towards the wild woods. He didn't stop for a minute when he reached the wood. Every few minutes he called out, Moore, where are you? It's me, Rat. He walked for more than an hour, but he couldn't find Moore. He was beginning to be afraid. He thought something had happened to Moore. Suddenly, when he thought he would never see Moore again, he heard a little voice. Ratty, is that really you? Moore, where are you? Rat cried. I'm here in the hole under the big tree, Moore answered. Rat found the hole and went inside. Oh, Ratty, cried Moore. I've been so frightened. I thought I was going to die. It's all right, Moore. I'm here with you, said Rat. But why did you come here by yourself? You are very silly. The wild woods is a bad place when you're alone. I never come here by myself. But don't be afraid now. We'll soon be home again. And Rat laughed. Come, Moore. We must start. Alrighty, said Moore. I'm very, very tired. You must let me rest here. If I don't rest, I never reach home again. Oh, all right, said Rat. So Moore sat down against the dried leaves. Soon he was asleep. Rat sat and waited. After an hour, Moore woke up. He said he was much better. They started for home, but when they got out of the hole, everywhere looked different. It had snowed while Moore slept. Everything was white. Quickly, said Rat. We must try to get home. But it's difficult because the snow has changed everywhere. The two animals walked and walked, but they couldn't find a way. They walked for more than 2 hours, but they were still in the wild woods. They were both very tired. Suddenly Moore cried, Oh, my leg, my leg! Poor old Moore, said Rat. Let me look at your leg. Yes, you've cut on something. Sit down for a minute. He cleaned the cut as well as he could. Then he looked at the piece of metal that had cut Moore's leg. That's for cleaning shoes, he said. And if there's a shoe cleaner, there must be a house near here. And he started to look in the snow. What is Rat thinking about? Moore wondered to himself. but he didn't say anything. After about 10 minutes, Rat cried, "But did I tell you more? Come and see." And Rat showed Moore a little door. On the door were the words, "Mr. Badger." "Fatty," cried Moore, "how clever you are. Now I see what you are doing. Is this really Badger's house?" "Yes," said Rat. "I think we're safe at last." He rang the doorbell. Chapter 5. Mr. Badger. After a long time, Rat and Moore heard noises on the other side of the door. Then the door opened a little, and the voice shouted, "Who's there?" The voice sounded very angry. "I don't want visitors. It's very late." "Oh, please let us in, Badger," said Rat. "It's me, Rat, and my friend Moore. We've lost our way in the snow." Badger's voice was very different when he spoke this time. "Ratty, my dear friend, come in at once. You must be frozen." How happy Rat and Moore were. The door closed behind them. They were safe at last. Badger's house, like Moore's, was under the ground. He took the two cold animals down a long passage. There were a lot of doors. Badger opened one of them, and there was the kitchen. There was a big open fire with a soft chair in front of it. In the middle of the room was a big table, and on the table was Badger's evening meal. Everything was warm and friendly. How different from the snow outside. Rat and Moore sat down by the fire. They took off their wet coats and shoes. Then Badger cooked a hot dinner for his two friends. They all sat down to eat. Nobody spoke for a quarter of an hour. They were all eating. Then Badger asked Moore and Rat to tell them their story. When Rat had finished, Badger said simply, "I'm glad you're here now." Moore thought what a good friend Badger was. Then Badger wanted to know about life on the river. "How's old Toad?" he asked. "Things are very bad," Rat answered sadly. "His car ran into a tree again last week. He wants him to have a driver. But no, Toad must drive himself. He thinks he's the best driver in the world, but he is really dangerous, you know." "How many cars has he had already?" Badger asked. 7, said Rat. "He's been badly hurt 3 times, and the police are very angry with him. You must do something, Badger. We're his friends. We must stop him driving." "Or we can't do anything now," said Badger. "It's the middle of the winter. We'll have to wait until spring comes. But when it gets warmer and the days get longer, then we'll do something. But now, my friends, it's bedtime. You're very tired, aren't you?" "Not really," said Rat, but his eyes were closing. "Don't get up early in the morning," Badger said, as he showed them their beds. "You can have breakfast at any time." Next morning, both Rat and Moore slept very late. They were having breakfast when the doorbell rang. It was Otter. Good morning," he shouted. "I'm glad you're all right. Everyone on the riverbank was very frightened. No one knew where you are. They thought you were lost in the snow, but I thought you'd be here with Badger, and I was right. Now, what happened?" So Rat and Moore told their story again. Poor Moore, he was quite frightened when he remembered the day before. "Weren't you frightened, Otter? Did you come through the wild woods alone?" he asked quietly. "Me? Frightened? No," cried Otter. "I'm not frightened of anything or anyone. Can I have some breakfast too? I'm very hungry." So Moore cooked some eggs for Otter. While he was cooking, Otter and Rat had a long talk. They hadn't seen each other for a long time because of the winter. Soon it was lunchtime and Badger came into the kitchen. After lunch, Badger took Moore to see the rest of the house. Otter and Rat were still talking about their river. Moore was surprised because Badger's house was so big. "How did you make all this, Badger?" he asked. "I didn't," said Badger. "These rooms were made by my mother and my father and by their mothers and fathers." Badgers had lived here for many, many years. "My house is under the ground too," Moore said. "I like houses under the ground. They're so nice and warm." "Yes," said Badger. "Do you like Toad's house?" "I don't." "I know that Toad Hall is a beautiful house, but it's so cold in the winter. But down here in my house, winter and summer are the same. Snow, wind, rain, I never noticed them." When they got back to the kitchen, Rat was walking up and down. He didn't like being under the ground. "Moore," he said, "we really mustn't go home. It'll soon be dark again. We don't want to be in the wild woods again tonight, do we?" "Don't be frightened," said Otter. "I'm coming with you this time. I know the way." "And I know the best way," said Badger. "The passages in my house go a long way. Come with me and I'll show you. You needn't go through the wild woods at all." Badger led the three animals down the many dark passages. After a long time, they could feel cold air on their faces, and at last they were outside again. They had left the wild woods far behind them. In front of them, they could see the fields which went down on the riverbank. They thanked Badger for his kindness, but Otter led the way back to the river. Very soon they were back at Rat's house. Both Rats and Moore were very glad to be home again. Chapter 6. Mr. Toad. The rest of the winter passed very quietly. At last, spring came, and Rat and Moore began their usual busy life. One morning in early summer, Rat and Moore were having a late breakfast. They had been awake since 6 o'clock that morning. There was so much work. They were very hungry. The doorbell rang. "Who can that be?" said Rat. "Go and see, Moore. You've finished your eggs and I haven't." Moore went to open the door and Rat heard a cry of surprise. "Who is it, Moore?" asked Rat shouted. "It's Badger," said Moore as he and Badger came into the room. "Isn't this wonderful?" "Badger!" cried Rat. "How good to see you. Come and have some breakfast." "Hello, Rat," Badger said quietly. "No, I won't have any breakfast, thank you. I'm here because the time has come." "What time?" asked Rat. "Time for us to change Toad," Badger answered. "I hear that he's still driving the silly cars, and one of the ducks has just told me that he bought another new car." "Oh, Badger, yes," Rat said. "Yes, we must teach Toad a lesson. And we must start today," Badger went on. "Summer is here and we must help our friend. I want you and Moore to come to Toad Hall with me." "Yes, of course," Red said. "Let's go now." The three friends left at once. When they reached Toad Hall, they saw Toad's new car. It was big and red. Toad was coming down the steps of his house. He was wearing his driving clothes. "Good morning, everyone," he cried when he saw them. "Are you coming for a ride in my new beautiful Poor Toad had seen Badger's face. He knew that something was wrong. "Take him inside," Badger said to Rat and Moore. When the 4 animals were inside the house, Badger said, "Take those foolish driving clothes off, Toad. You won't need them today." "I shan't," answered Toad rudely. "What's the meaning of this? How dare you come here and give me orders? This is my house." "Take off your driving clothes, Moore," Badger ordered. "Take off those driving clothes, Moore," Badger ordered. Toad still didn't know what was happening. He fought Rat and Moore, but at last his driving coat and hat were off. "Now, Toad," said Badger, "you know why we are here. You've behaved very badly. You've wasted your money on those foolish cars. The police are very angry at you, and you're a very dangerous driver. You must stop driving from today. I want to talk to you alone." And Badger took Toad into another room and closed the door. "Talking isn't enough," said Rat. Talking won't change Toad. Toad will say anything, won't he, Moore?" Badger and Toad talked for a long time. After an hour, the door opened and the 2 animals came out. Toad looked very unhappy. "Sit down here, Toad," said Badger quite kindly. "You'll be pleased to hear this, my friends. Toad is very sorry about his past. He says that he'll stop driving cars forever." There was a long silence. Rat noticed a smile on Toad's eyes, and he knew that Toad wasn't sorry at all. At last, Toad said rudely, No, I'm not sorry. I love cars, and driving is the most wonderful thing in the world. I shan't stop." "What?" cried Badger, very surprised. "You are a bad animal, Toad." "What did I tell you, Moore?" Rat said quietly. "Toad will say anything." Badger went on. "If you won't listen to words, Toad, we must make you change. You have often asked us to come and stay at Toad Hall. Well, now we are going to stay here. More Rat, take Toad to his bedroom and lock the door. Then come back here. We must make our plans." Toad was very, very angry. He fought hard, but at last Moore and Rat got him to his bedroom and locked the door. "This is going to be difficult," said Badger angrily. "It will take a long time to change him. One of us must be with him all the time, day and night. We must never be left alone." And that is what Badger, Rat, and Moore did. One of them slept in Toad's room at night, and all through the day one of them was with him. At first, Toad was very rude and difficult. He shouted and cried and threw things round the room. But slowly he grew quieter. One morning, Rat went into Toad's room. Toad was still in bed. He looked there. He was very quiet and sad. Badger had slept in the room that night. "I don't know what's the matter with him," Badger said quietly. "The only thing he has said this morning is, 'Leave me alone.' Be careful, Ratty. Toad can be very clever. He isn't usually so quiet. I think he's planning something. I must go now and have some breakfast." And he left the room. "How are you today, Toad?" Rat asked. Toad didn't answer at once. Then he said, "Thank you for asking, dear Ratty. I'm afraid I'm not well. I'm sorry I've been so difficult, but I don't think I'll be here very long. Then your work will end. I feel very ill." "What are you talking about, Toad?" asked Rat. "Get out of bed. Let's play a game or something." "Oh, Ratty, I don't think I can. "You never play games again," Toad went on. His voice sounded smaller than before. "Didn't want to be difficult, but..." He stopped for a minute and then went on. "I need the doctor, Ratty. Could you get him for me, please?" "Why do you want a doctor?" Rat asked. "I don't think you're very ill." But Ratty was beginning to be afraid. He looked closely at Toad. Yes, the poor animal seemed very sick. "Perhaps I should get a doctor," Rat thought to himself. "Toad," he said, "if you're really ill, I'll get the doctor." "Oh, dear Ratty," Toad said, "I'm afraid it may be too late." When he heard Toad's words, Rat knew that he had to go at once. Perhaps poor Toad was dying. "Don't say foolish things," he said quietly. "I'll go for a doctor at once." As soon as Rat had left the room, Toad jumped out of bed. He wasn't ill. He was going to be free at last. He sang a little song as he dressed, but Rat hadn't remembered to lock the door behind him. So Toad went quietly out of his room and left the house. No one saw him. At lunchtime, Rat had to tell a Badger and Mole the story. They were not pleased. "I told you to be careful," said Badger angrily. "Now he had made a fool of us. What are we going to do? I think we should stay here for a few days. Toad may come back, but he may not," he added. By lunchtime, Toad was already 5 miles away from Toad Hall. He was free and he was happy. He thought he was very clever. I fooled them, he said to himself. "Poor Ratty. The others will be very angry when they know." Soon he reached a small town. "I'm hungry," he thought. "I must find a place where I can eat." Then he saw a place across the road. It was called the Black Horse. He walked in and ordered some lunch. While he was eating, he heard the noises outside. Poop, poop. He had heard that noise before. It was a motor car. The people who owned the car came into the Black Horse. He sat down and ordered some food. By now, Toad had finished his meal. The noise of the car had made him very excited. "I must go and look at it," he thought to himself. So he paid for his lunch and went outside. There was the car, beautiful and new. Toad looked at it for long times. How wonderful it was. "I wonder if it starts easily," he thought. The next minute he had opened the door and was sitting in the front. He was so excited. He didn't know what he was doing. He started the car and drove off. "What a good life!" he cried happily. But his happiness didn't last. The police caught him about 20 miles away. The next day, Toad had to go before the judge. The judge was very angry with him. "Toad," he said, "you have been very bad, Toad, for 3 reasons. Firstly, you stole a motor car. Secondly, you drove that car very dangerously. Thirdly, you're very rude to the police when they stopped you. You must go to the prison for 20 years. Poor Toad. He looked so unhappy. 20 years is a long time. Chapter 7, Toad's Adventures. When Toad arrived in dark, cold prison, he threw himself on the floor. He cried and cried and cried. "This is the end of Toad. Then the end of everything," he cried. "I've been very bad. They will never set me free. I've been so foolish. My dear friends won't remember me. I wish I'd listened to Badger and Ratty and Mole. They were right and I was wrong." And he began to cry again. But life in prison wasn't so bad. The man who looked after the prison had a pretty daughter. She liked animals and she felt very sorry for Toad. One day she said to "Father, please let me talk to Toad. He seems so unhappy. I'd like to take him some good food. He isn't eating enough and he looks quite ill." Her father said that she could, and so the girl went to see Toad. "Good morning, Toad," she said. "I've brought you some good food. Sit up and try to eat." Toad didn't answer. He lay on the floor in silence, so the girl left the food and went away. The food filled the room with a good smell. Soon Toad had to eat it. Then he began to feel happier. Perhaps everything was not lost. When the girl came back that evening, Toad looked much better. This time, she had brought him some tea, some fresh bread, and a cake. When Toad ate, the girl sat and talked to him. "Tell me about the Toad Hall," she asked. "I've heard that it's very beautiful." "Toad Hall," said Toad, "is the most beautiful house in England. It's very old. Parts of it are more than 400 years old. But inside, everything is new and wonderful," said Toad. And Toad laughed. For the first time in weeks, the girl saw that he was better. After that, the girl came to visit Toad 3 times every day. Each time she brought him food and stayed to talk to him. They had many long talks, and Toad told her about Toad Hall and his life there. The girl felt very sorry for Toad. He shouldn't be in prison. It was wrong to steal that car, but he is sorry now, she thought. Then she had an idea. The next time she saw Toad, she said, "Toad, listen, I have an idea. I have an aunt who's a washerwoman. She does the washing for the prison. She takes the washing every Monday morning and she brings it back on Friday. You told me that you're very rich. She's very poor. Perhaps if you give her some money, she'll give you her clothes. Then you can leave the prison. Everyone will think you're a washerwoman." "Well," said Toad slowly. He didn't like the idea of wearing a washerwoman's clothes, but he didn't like the idea of being in prison for 20 years. And so he quickly said, "You are a clever girl. That's a very good idea. Today is Thursday. Can I see your aunt when she comes tomorrow?" "Yes, of course, Toad," the girl answered. "I must go now, but I'll come to see you tomorrow." The next afternoon, the girl came into Toad's room with her aunt. Toad paid the washerwoman £20, and she gave him her clothes. "You look just like my aunt," the girl laughed as Toad put on the clothes. "No one will know that you're really Mr. Toad." Toad didn't like this at all, but he knew what he had to keep quiet. And so Toad left the prison. A few people talked to him and said good afternoon, but no one stopped him. At last he was outside the prison. He was free again. He knew that he had to get away from the prison quickly, but he didn't know the way home. Then he heard a train. "Aha!" he cried. "That's the answer." But when he put his hand where his money usually was, he couldn't find it. He had left his money in the other clothes. "Oh dear, what am I going to do?" Toad asked himself. He couldn't get on the train because he hadn't got any money. He began to cry. Just then the train arrived. The driver saw Toad crying. "Hello, washerwoman," he said. "What's the matter? You look very sad." "Oh dear," cried Toad. "I've lost all my money and I can't go on your train. I must go home tonight. If I don't, my children will have no home tonight. Food. I don't know what to do." "Well," said the driver kindly, "if you'll wash some clothes for me, I'll give you a ride on my train. I ought not to do this, but I feel very sorry for you. Come, get up here beside me." Toad felt better at once and he jumped on the train. The train left. Toad was on his way home at last. After many miles, the driver suddenly said, "Something's wrong. We're the last train this evening, but I can see another train behind us. It's going very fast, too." Oh no, thought Toad. The police are coming to catch me. The other train came nearer. I can see a lot of policemen, said the driver. I wonder what they're doing. Then Toad had to tell the driver, help me, my dear driver. I'll tell you everything. I'm not a washerwoman. I have got any children. I'm Mr. Toad of Toad Har. I just ran away from prison. If those policemen catch me, I'll have to go back to prison for 20 years. But why were you in prison? The driver asked. Oh, I hadn't done anything very bad, said Toad. I took a car where its owners were having lunch. I didn't really steal it. I was going to give it back, and now I'm sorry for it. I'm telling you the truth. I really am. All right, said the driver. You've been a very bad Toad, but I can see you're very sorry. So I won't give you to the police. I hate to see you so unhappy. But what are we going to do? Our train is very long and heavy. We can't go very fast, but the train behind us is small and light. They can go very fast. He thought for a minute, and then he went on. I know. Listen carefully, Toad. Soon we'll come to a long, dark tunnel through a hill. On the other side of the tunnel, you can jump out. You can hide in the wood. Then I'll go very fast. The police will be in the tunnel. They won't see you when you jump out. They'll think that you're still on this train. Thank you, Toad cried. Are you ready? The driver asked. You must jump when I say. They went through the tunnel very fast, and the driver slowed to the train and shouted, Jump! Toad jumped. He landed safely on the bank and ran quickly into the woods. 2 minutes later, he saw the second train go by. He laughed and laughed, but he soon stopped laughing. It was very late and very cold. He didn't know where he was, and he was very, very hungry. He was also frightened. The woods was so quiet and dark. I'll stay here until morning, he said to himself. He found a hole under a tree and climbed into it. He lay down and tried to sleep. Chapter 8. More of Toad's Adventures. The next morning, Toad woke up very early because he was so cold. For a minute, he couldn't remember where he was. Then he thought, I'm free! He started to walk, but he didn't know the way to Toad Har. There was no one to ask because it was so early in the morning. So he started to walk along a small country road. It must go somewhere, he said to himself. Our roads go somewhere. Soon he came to a river. There was a boat on the river. A horse was pulling the boat. Good morning, a woman on the boat called to Toad. It's a lovely morning, isn't it? Yes, it is, said Toad sadly. But everything's going wrong today. As you see, I'm a washerwoman, but I've had to leave my job. My married daughter needs me, and I must go to her. I've left all my other children at home, and there's no one to look after them. And now I've lost my money, and I've lost my way. What shall I do? Toad cried. Where does your married daughter live? The boat woman asked kindly. She lives near the river, Toad answered, near a fine house called Toad Har. Have you heard of it? Yes, of course I have, the woman said, and I'm going very near there. Get in the boat, and I'll take you. Oh, thank you, cried Toad, and he got into the boat. So you're a washerwoman? Asked the boatwoman after a few minutes. I wonder if you haven't time to wash them. My husband is very lazy and he's gone away for the day. I want to do the washing, but I have to look after the boat. Will you wash the clothes for me? Toad didn't know what to say. Then he thought to himself, anyone can wash clothes. I'll try. So he got dirty clothes, the hot water and soap, but washing clothes wasn't easy. Poor Toad couldn't get the clothes clean. He tried and tried for nearly an hour. He got quite angry in himself and with the clothes. Suddenly he heard a woman. She was laughing at him. "I've been watching you," she cried. "You don't need to know how to wash clothes. I don't think you're a real washerwoman." And she laughed again. This made Toad really angry. "You bad and kind woman," he said. He cried rudely. "How dare you laugh at me? No, of course I'm not a washerwoman. I'm Mr. Toad Har." The boatwoman looked at him very carefully. "Ugh!" she cried. "A dirty toad! And on my boat!" "Get off at once!" And she took hold of Toad's leg and threw him into the river. Splash! Toad was very, very angry now. The water was very cold. His washerwoman's clothes made swimming very difficult. But at last he reached the bank. He saw the boatwoman on her boat. She was still laughing at him. He wanted to hurt her, but what could he do? Suddenly he saw her horse, and he had an idea. He ran to the horse and took the rope from around its head. Then he jumped onto the horse's back. The next minute he was riding very fast across the fields. He looked back at once and saw the boatwoman. "Stop, stop, stop!" she cried. "No, oh no, I shan't," he answered. The horse couldn't go very fast, but Toad didn't mind. After some time, he came to a big field. In the corner of the field, he saw a caravan. A man was cooking some food on the fire outside the caravan. The food smelled wonderful. "How hungry I am," thought Toad. "I must eat something, but how?" He hadn't got any money. As Toad passed the caravan, the man spoke to him. "Do you want to sell the horse?" he asked. Toad was very surprised and pleased, and hadn't thought of that idea. He needed the money very badly. "What?" he said. "Do you want to sell my horse?" "No, of course I don't. How can I work without a horse? But," he added, "if I sold him, how much would you give me?" £4. The man answered. £4? cried Toad. "I paid more than that for him. I'd want £10. He's a very good horse." £5 then, the man went on, and no more. Toad really was very hungry. He had to have some money. The man's food smelled very good, so he said, "I'll take £7 for the horse if you give me some breakfast. Now, what do you say?" "All right," said the man slowly, "if I must." He gave Toad the money, and then he went into the caravan. He brought out a plate. Then he gave Toad some breakfast. Toad started to eat. It was the very best breakfast of his life. He ate and ate and ate. At last he couldn't eat any more, and he thanked the man and said goodbye. He started to walk towards the Toad Har. He was clever, very happy, and he sang as he walked. "What a clever toad I am," he thought to himself. "I've fooled everybody." After an hour or more, he began to feel tired. Then he heard a car behind him. "I'll ask the driver to take me to Toad Har if he is going that way," Toad thought. How good to be in a car again. He waved at the car. It stopped, but when Toad saw the car clearly, his happiness left him. "That's the car I stole from outside the Black Horse," he said, "and the same people are in it. Oh, what shall I do? It's too late to go back." He sat down at the side of the road. "Everything is finished," he thought. "They'll take me to the police and I'll go back to prison again. Oh, foolish Toad, why didn't you travel at night?" Two men got out of the car. "Oh dear," one of them said, "this poor washerwoman looks very ill. What shall we do?" "Let's take her to the next village. She must have friends there. Perhaps they can help," the other man said. They gently put Toad into the front of the car. They sounded so friendly and kind that Toad was less frightened. He opened one eye and then the other. "Are you feeling better?" the driver asked. "Yes, thank you," Toad answered. "I'm much better now." The driver started the car, and for a time Toad didn't say anything. But at last he couldn't keep quiet any longer. "Please, sir," he said, "I've never driven a car, but I've always wanted to drive. I've been watching you, and it doesn't look very difficult. Do you think I could try to drive? Just for a little way?" The driver laughed, and the other man said, "Let her drive. The road is quiet." And so they let Toad drive. At first he drove quite carefully, but then he went faster and faster and faster. "Be careful, washerwoman," shouted the two men, but Toad didn't listen. "Ho, ho!" he cried. "This is wonderful. I'm not a washerwoman. I'm clever Mr. Toad, the best driver in the world. You can't stop me now." "Toad? The Toad?" cried the two men. "The Toad who stole our car? Stop at once. We will take you back to the police." But Toad didn't want to go back to prison, so he turned the wheel suddenly. The car went off the ground. It crossed the field and stopped suddenly against a tree. Toad was thrown at. He got up and started to run away very fast. The two men were still inside the car. They couldn't get out because the door was broken. Toad ran and ran. Then he looked behind him. Oh no, the man had gotten out of the car very fast. They were following him. They were running very fast too. But by now Toad was tired. "I can't run anymore," he thought. "They'll catch me. Their legs are longer than mine. What shall I do? I'm a foolish Toad. Why do I do these silly things?" Suddenly splash, Toad fell into some very deep water. He had seen the river. He tried to swim to the bank, but he was too tired. Then he felt a hand which pushed him towards the hole in the bank. He also heard a voice that he knew very well. "Good morning, Toad. Where have you come from?" It was Ratty. Chapter 9. Toad sees his friend again. Rat pushed Toad out of the water and into his hole. "Oh, Ratty," said Toad, "I'm so glad to see you. I've had so many adventures, and I've been so clever. I fooled everyone. I must tell you everything." "Wait a minute, Toad," said Ratty. "First, you must take off those red clothes. I must say, you look very silly. Why aren't you wearing a washerwoman's clothes?" Don't tell me now. No more talking. Go and change at once." When Toad came back, lunch was on the table, where they ate. Toad told Rat about his adventures. He talked mostly about his own cleverness. He was boasting again. Rat said nothing for a long time. Then at last he held up his hand. "I don't want to hurt you, Toad, but I know that you've only just come home, but you must stop boasting. All this talk is foolish. You are not clever. You've behaved very, very badly. You've been in prison. Does that mean nothing to you? How do you think Moore and I feel? We don't like having a friend who's been in prison. People say unkind things about it." Poor Toad. Half of him knew that Rat was right, but the other half of him didn't want to believe it. He had fun on his adventures, and the good half won the Toad, and very quietly, "You're right, Ratty. I've been very bad, foolish, but from now on, I'm going to be more good. I don't like cars anymore. The trouble this morning taught me a lesson. And I've just had a wonderful idea. Motorboats." Here Ratty began to look very angry. "No, Ratty, don't be angry with me," said Toad. Toad went on. "It was only an idea. I didn't mean it. I won't say anymore. Let's have some coffee or talk about something different. While they were having coffee, Toad said, I think I'll take down to Toad Hard next. I must get some clean clothes and I want to see the old place again. Walk down to Toad Hard, cried Rat. But you can't. Haven't you heard, Toad? Heard what? Asked Toad, surprised. Tell me, Ratty. Quick! What happened? What haven't I heard? About the Stoats and Weezers from the Wild Woods, Red answered. They've taken Toad Hard. Poor Toad. Big tears appeared in his eyes. He began to cry, very quietly at first. Go on, Ratty, he said sadly. Tell me everything. I must know. Oh, Toad, said Rat. I don't want to tell you, but I must. He stopped for a minute and then went on. After you'd gone to prison, everyone thought you wouldn't come back. Well, not everyone. More Badger and I said that you'd come back, but the other animals didn't believe us. More and Badger, your best friends, Toad. I hope you always remember that. More and Badger stayed at Toad Hall and look after the house. Then one dark cold night, the Stoats and Weezers from the Wildwoods went to Toad Hall. They had guns and knives and sticks. They threw Badger and More out of the house. Badger and More fought very bravely, but there were only two of them. They haven't got any guns or sticks or knives, and there were hundreds of Stoats and Weezers. That's the sad story. The Stoats and Weezers have been living in Toad Hall ever since that night. They are eating your food, drinking your drink. Many of your things are broken. I'm sorry that I had to tell you. My poor house, my beautiful Toad Hall. What am I going to do? I'd like to go there this minute. I want to fight those Stoats and Weezers. But you can't, Rat said. There are too many of them. We've tried to get into the house, but there are Stoats everywhere, in the garden, by the river, on the road. They all have guns. We can't get near. I don't care, cried Toad. I'm going to try now. And he jumped up and left Rat's house before Rat could stop him. Toad came back in an hour. He looked very sad. What did I tell you? Rat said. We can't do anything. We can only wait. You are right, Ratty, Toad said quietly. The Stoat stopped me on the gate. He said that he would shoot me if I went into the garden, so I went round to the back of the house, but the same thing happened. What are we going to do? He was almost crying. First, we'll have some tea, Rat said kindly. Then we'll wait for Badger and More. They may have some new ideas. Yes, Ratty, said Toad. How are More and Badger? I didn't ask you about them. Why didn't you, Toad? Rat asked. They're your best friends, and they've thought of you every day since the Stoats and Weezers took Toad Hall. More and Badger have been there. They've watched very carefully. They know everything about the Stoats and Weezers. They can't do anything yet, but they know everything. Really, Toad, you should be more thankful. Alrighty, said Toad. I'm so sorry. I am thankful. I really am. But life's been difficult. So difficult. And Toad started to cry again. Stop crying, Toad, said Rat. It doesn't hurt. Have some tea. When they had finished their tea, the doorbell rang. It was Badger. He was wet and cold and hungry. He didn't seem very surprised or pleased to see Toad. Hello, Toad, he said. I'm hungry. And he sat down to eat his tea. He didn't say anything more until he had finished. Then More came, and he too was cold, wet, and hungry. But he was very glad to see Toad again. Good afternoon, Toad. It's good to see you again. How did you get out of prison? You must be very clever to get away from the police. I want to hear all about your adventures. Toad was just going to tell more all about this adventure when Rat stopped him. Be quiet, Toad, he said angrily. We don't want to hear any more boasting. You have behaved very badly, and you know it. And don't ask him any more questions more. He isn't clever. He's very silly. Now, Badger, and more. What happened at Toad Hall? I'm afraid, said Moore, the Badger and I can't find any way into the place. There are stoats with guns everywhere. They laugh when they see us, and they say very rude things about you, Toad. It makes me very angry. But what are we going to do? Badger asked. Toad has come home, and he needs his house. Rat, Moore, and Toad all began to speak at the same time. They all had different ideas. Oh, be quiet, all of you, Badger shouted. There was a sudden silence. I want you to listen very carefully. We can't fight the stoats and weasels. There are too many of them, and there are only 4 of us. But there's another way. I'm going to tell you something very important. Only I know about it. Oh, ho, ho, cried Toad excitedly. You mustn't tell anyone, Toad, said Badger. If you tell anyone, we are lost. Do you understand? Yes, Badger, said Toad quietly. There's a tunnel under the ground, Badger went on. It goes from the riverbank right into the middle of the Toad Hall. Oh, no, Badger. That can't be true, Toad laughed. I've lived in Toad Hall all my life, and I've never heard of an underground tunnel. My father never told me about a tunnel. No, he didn't, said Badger. Your father knew you too well, but he told me about it. He said that I must tell you only if you're in real danger. Our present difficulties are so bad that I can tell you now. Oh, dear, said Toad. I'm afraid my father was right. But I'm not such a bad Toad, am I? I'm a kind person, and they like me, don't they? No one answered Toad. Badger went on. I've just learned something else. Otter tells me that there's going to be a big party at Toad Hall tomorrow night. The head weasel is 21 years old tomorrow. This is my plan. The tunnel comes out into the room next to the room where the party will be. We can surprise the weasels. The stoats will be outside the house with their guns, but the weasels won't have their guns with them at the party. And so we 4 will be able to beat them easily. Without their guns and sticks, and the weasels aren't very brave. Well done, Badger, cried Rat, Moore and Toad. So that's what we shall do. And now we must go to bed. We must rest as much as possible. Tomorrow will be a difficult day. Good night, my friends. And Badger left the room. Toad slept very well that night. It was late when he got up in the morning. Rat, Moore, and Badger had already had breakfast. Moore had gone out. Badger was reading. Rat was very busy. He was gathering together guns, sticks, and knives for the 4 friends. A gun for Badger, a gun for Moore, a gun for Toad, and a gun for me, he said quietly to himself. A stick for Badger, a stick for Moore, a stick for Toad, and a stick for me. Ratty, said Badger, we don't need all the guns and knives and things. A stick will be enough, but we may need them, Rat answered. It's better than to have too much than too little, isn't it? After lunch, Moore still had not come back. The other 3 animals sat down to wait. The afternoon seemed endless. Chapter 10. The Battle for Toad Hall. Late in the afternoon, Moore came in. He was looking very pleased with himself. Where have you been, Moore? Rat asked. I've had a wonderful afternoon, Ratty, Moore cried excitedly. I've been to Toad Hall. But why? Rat asked. I hope you haven't done anything foolish or dangerous. Oh, no, said Moore. It was quite safe, and I've had a lot of fun. Tell us about it, said Toad. He wished that he had gone with Moore. I found Toad's washerwoman clothes this morning, Moore began, and I had a good idea. So I put them on, and I went up to Toad Hall. I asked the Stoats and Weasels if they had any washing. They all said no, but they never had any washing. They really are little animals, aren't they? I stayed to talk to some of the Stoats, but a weasel came out. He told me to go away. He said I was wasting the Stoats' times. I laughed at him and said, "Go away. It won't be me who goes away just soon. Soon you Stoats and Weasels will have to go away." "Oh, Moore, what have you done?" cried Rat. "They will be waiting for us now." "No, Rat, wait a minute," Moore went on. "I told him that I worked for Mr. Badger. I heard that 100 brave, strong badgers are going to go to Toad Hall. I said that they were going to throw out all the Stoats and Weasels. I also told them that hundreds of rats and toads and moors are coming." The Stoats and Weasels looked very frightened. They all started to talk at the same time. Everyone was giving orders. "Oh, Moore," cried Toad, "you are a fool." "No, Toad," said Badger quietly. "Moore has done a very clever thing." "Well done, Moore." Toad and Rat still didn't know what Badger meant, but they knew that Badger was always right, so they didn't say anything. They had an early meal that evening. When it was dark, they all met at Rat's front door. Rat gave each of them a gun, a stick, and a knife. Then Badger took a light and said, "Follow me." Moore first, because I'm very pleased with him. Then Rat, and then Toad. "And you must behave, Toad. If you don't, we'll send you back. Do you understand?" "Yes, Badger," said Toad quietly. He didn't like being last, but he couldn't say anything. First, they walked along the river bank for a little way. Then Badger went into a hole in the bank. Moore and Rat followed him easily, but Toad fell into the river. Splash! Moore and Toad pulled him out. He was very wet and cold. Badger was angry. "I told you to behave, Toad," he said. "One more foolish thing, and we'll leave you behind." At last, they were inside the tunnel. It was cold and dark and wet. Poor Toad. He was still very wet, and he couldn't walk as fast as the others. "Quickly, Toad," shouted Rat from the front. But Toad came too quickly. He was afraid that he would be left behind, so he ran to catch the others, but he ran too fast in the darkness. He ran into Rat, who pushed Moore, who made Badger fall over. This time, Badger was really angry. "Go back at once, Toad," he shouted. "We don't want you with us." Poor Toad began to cry. He wanted to be with them when they got to Toad Hall. Rat and Moore felt sorry for him, and Rat said, "Let him come with us, Badger. I know he'll be good from now on. And we're going to his house, aren't we?" So Toad stayed with them. After a long time, they heard a noise above their heads. It sounded a long way down. People were singing and shouting and laughing. "They're having a good party," Badger said. "Good. They won't hear us." Soon the tunnel began to go up. The next minute, they got out of the tunnel, through the door, into the floor. They were in the room next to the party. There was a lot of noise. "Follow me," cried Badger to his friends. "The time has come," and he threw open the door. The 4 friends ran into the middle of the party. They used their guns and sticks and their knives. Crash! A weasel fell on the floor. Bang! Another weasel hit his head against the table. The 4 friends fought very bravely. The weasels were very, very frightened. They thought that there were hundreds of moors, rats, badgers, and toads. They didn't know that there were only 4. They were too surprised. Many of the weasels turned to run away, but the doors and windows weren't wide enough for them all. Some weasels hid behind the curtains, other weasels hid under the tables and chairs. But the 4 friends found them all and sent them running. Soon the fight was over. Toad had hit the head with Weasel very hard. The weasel didn't have a leader anymore. Badger was right. Without their guns and sticks, and the weasels weren't brave. They had all run away. After they had gone, Badger said, "I'm hungry. What about some food, Toad?" "We've all worked hard." The four animals found a lot of food in the dining room. The Weasels and Stoats didn't finish their meal. "You have your house again, Toad. I hope that you're thankful," said Badger while they were eating. "Oh, I am," said Toad. "Thank you all 1,000 times." Badger's next question was, "Where are we all going to sleep?" "More, will you and Toad go and get some beds ready?" Toad didn't like the idea, and he didn't like the Badger giving him orders and his own house. But he didn't say anything. He was so happy to be home at last. More and Toad came back 10 minutes later. "There are 4 clean beds," said More. "That will be enough for tonight. But oh dear, this house is dirty and so many things are broken. We have a lot of work tomorrow." "We'll think about that in the morning," said Badger. "Now it's bedtime." Chapter 11. Toad's Big Party. The next morning, Toad slept very late as usual. The other 3 animals had already had breakfast when Toad came downstairs. More and Rat were sitting in the garden in the sunshine. They were talking and laughing a lot. Badger was inside, reading quietly. He looked up when Toad came into the room. "Good morning, Toad," he said. "I'm glad you're here at last. I want to talk to you about your party." "Party? What party?" asked Toad, surprised. "The party for all your friends," Badger said. "You're home again, and so you must have a party. It would be very rude if you didn't give a party." "Oh, I see," said Toad. "Yes, of course we must have a party. What fun. When shall we have it? Next Saturday?" "More Rat and I think we should have the party tonight," Badger said. "Oh," said Toad, "but that doesn't give me much time." "No, it doesn't," Badger went on. "You must write the invitations at once." "But I haven't had breakfast yet," Toad said, "and I'm very hungry." "Oh, all right," said Badger, "but be quick. Here is some paper and a pen. I want you to ask all your friends to the party. While you're writing the invitations, I'll order the food and drink." "But Badger," Toad said sadly, "I want to go and look at my house and gardens this morning. I haven't seen them for a long time." "I don't want to stay inside. It's such a beautiful morning. I don't want to write hundreds of invitations. Not yet. Not today, please." Badger was beginning to look angry. Toad noticed it and went on quickly. "Oh, but of course I'll write the invitations at once. You know best, Badger. You're always right. I can look at my garden any day. I must do what you say. You've been very kind to me. You've helped me get my house back." "Well said, Toad," said Badger, and he left the room. Toad went into his writing desk. Suddenly, he had an idea, and he started to laugh. "I'll write the invitations," he thought to himself. "And then tonight I will make a speech. I'll tell everyone about me, the brave and clever Toad, who beat all the Stoats and Weasels. Toad who fooled the police, the boatwoman, and the owners of the car. I really am the cleverest Toad in the world. And after I've written the invitations, I'll write some songs. I'll sing the songs at the party tonight." He was very pleased with himself. He sat down and began to write. He worked out all morning. Invitation: "Please come to a party tonight at Toad Hall. Toad will make 3 speeches about how his adventures, and he will sing some songs." When Toad had finished the invitations, he gave them to the postman. "Take these invitations to all my friends," he told the postman, "and be quick. We haven't much time." Then he went to his bedroom and wrote some songs. The 4 animals met for lunch at 1 o'clock. No one talked very much, but after the meal, Badger turned to Toad and said, "Come with me, Toad. We'll go into the other room. I want to talk to you. Please come with us, Rat." Inside the room, Badger went on. "Now, Toad, I want you to listen very carefully. We've seen your silly invitations. We stopped the postman before lunch. The invitations are no good. You must write some more, simple ones. There must be no songs and no speeches at the party tonight. Your friends already know the story of your adventures. You needn't tell them again. Remember, no speeches and no songs." "Not even one little song?" Toad asked sadly. "No, not one," Rat answered, but he saw Toad's sad face, and he felt sorry for his friend. "Toad, you must understand. In the past, you have always talked too much about yourself and your cleverness. No one likes listening to boasting. Your friends like you very much, but they don't always like your talk. From now on, you must stop talking about yourself so much." "I know you're right, Ratty," Toad cried. "I know I'm a foolish Toad. I know I talk too much about myself. I'll try to change. I really will try. And now I'm going to write some new invitations." And Toad left the room. "Oh, Badger," cried Rat, "I hate being unkind to Toad." I know," Badger answered. So do I. But someone has to teach him. We are his friends, and we have to tell him." At last, evening came. Toad's friends came to Toad Hall for the party. Toad was still in the bedroom. He felt a little sad. Rat and Badger's words had hurt him deeply. Suddenly he began to laugh quietly. "I know my friends are right," he said. "I must change my ways. But before I change, I'm going to sing one last song. One of the songs I wrote this morning. I won't sing it at the party. That would make Badger very angry. I'll sing it now." And so he sang when Toad came home, his last song. Then he went down to meet his friends. "Hooray, hooray!" they all shouted when he came into the room. "Hooray for our good friend Toad!" Everyone wanted to hear about Toad's adventures, but he didn't tell them. Someone said how clever he was. Another person said how brave he was. But Toad simply answered, "Oh, it was nothing." Toad has changed. The party was wonderful. Badger had ordered the best food and drink. Everyone had fun. There was a lot of talking and laughing. During the evening, Otter asked to make a speech, but Toad said, No, I really can't. I have nothing to say, my friends." Toad had changed. After a big party, the four friends went back to their own way of life. Badger went back to his house in the wild woods. Rat and Moore went back to Rat's house by the river. Toad lived quietly at Toad Hall. He sent a present to the pretty girl at the prison. He wrote a thankful letter to the train driver, and he even bought a new horse for the boat woman. He did not buy any more cars or motorboats. The End of The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame.